I thought it would be useful to just create this guidance to walk you through the creation of the residential framework maps, as there's been some changes from our original approach. What we're basically looking for is demonstrated by the map we can see in front of us that I've created for Brighton. Essentially, we have the LSOA areas with associated data on vacancies and places. I can show you this just by having a look at the attributes briefly. So the key columns of interest for you now is the places and vacancies column. In this example, I've used places, and I will use places in this demonstration, but you would also need to do exactly the same process to create a map for vacancies for all the different areas. You will also see the boundary. Now there's a black boundary in the middle of the screen, which is actually the boundary of Brighton itself. That's important, and we need to show that in the map and make sure it's clear. Then you can see that the residential data has been styled. Where we have no values, it's a transparent appearance, but where there are values, we've got some colours at different degrees. I've created this style, and that's the concept that we're trying to get, so you can actually see through the colours. You can see some of the topography that sits underneath where there's no data. That's the idea, but feel free to play with the style yourself to get it right. And like I said, that's using the places field to create this style. I would also say it's important to get this style right first up before we go forward and create additional maps, just because it would save you time if you get it right using all the data, so you have the same legend for every single one. Then it will be a lot easier than having to try and recreate it. That's my view anyway. And the final layer is a 20-mile buffer around the Brighton boundary. So around the area boundary, I've created this 20-mile buffer. So we need to replicate that. And the idea is that we're showing all the LSOA areas that fall inside that 20-mile buffer, but not those that overlap it, so just those that are inside. That's what we're trying to achieve. That's the requirement. The reason for widening the area is that if you look at Brighton here at the minute, there's no actual values inside the Brighton boundary itself. So I question this, are we really going to show a map of Brighton with no data? And they came back to me and said, no, but we'd like to increase the area because for reasons that I don't fully understand, the surrounding area is valid for the Brighton Authority. Okay, so let's go through the process that I recommend taking to create the other maps as efficiently as possible. You'll see that over on the left hand side here I've got this group called residential group, and then within inside I've got a Brighton group, and I suggest that we create a group for every single area, and then we've got the relevant layers for Brighton in there. So you can see you've got the boundary, you've got the 20-mile boundary, and you've got the LSOA areas as well. If you also just look at the top here, yes, we've got the full data sets that have yet to be filtered, and just to be clear what these are, so we've got boundary line, these are the boundaries, and we've got one that's 20 mile and one that's the actual boundary. Okay, so I've basically pre-created all the buffers for all the areas, and all you need to do is just filter out each of them to make sure that we're picking the right boundary and the right buffer for each map. There's the boundaries come in two different types. There's something called a UBD boundary, UBD stands for Unitary Borough District. These are more like local authorities. And most of the ones in our list are of that type. However, there are a few counties which do not fall in that data set. Therefore, we need to use the county version of the boundary data. And I can tell you, if we just get the list up, here's the list. There we go. This is the list of all of them. The counties are East Sussex, Surrey, West Sussex, and Oxfordshire. You may think Dorset is a county. It is, but in this case we're not using the county boundary. There is a different Dorset boundary that we need, which will be found in the UDB layer. And note that there's a 20-mile buffer for both of these two different layers, so UDB and county. Okay, so what I thought we would do, we would go through the process to create a map for Portsmouth. So what I'm going to do is create a group in here, and we'll just call it Portsmouth. I'm going to continue working in this group, and I'm just going to make a copy of the Brighton boundary for the minute. This is a good place to start. So we can do that by going to duplicate layer. It appears there, and I'll pop it into the Portsmouth group. And we'll do the same for the 20-mile-an-hour one. 20-mile one, duplicate. Perfect. So there is our duplicate. I'll pop it in here. Nice. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is get the right boundaries up, and we need to do that by changing the filters within these data sets. So let's start with the actual boundary. If we go to right click and go to filter, you'll see the existing filter that's here. Probably the easiest way to do this is just delete the existing filter, clear it. Clear is important. It clears the filter. Then you can just recreate it, and we can do name. If I stay on name and then just go all over here, it should provide a list of all of the different areas, and I can just search for Portsmouth. There it is, City of Portsmouth. Okay, I've put that in. I just need to put the equals sign in between. Super, and go OK. Nice. Right, I'll switch off the Brighton layers for the time being. I'll go to the Portsmouth one. I can zoom to the layer, and we've got the boundary of Portsmouth. Nice. So going to do exactly the same thing for the 20-mile boundary. Go to the filter on the layer, clear the filter, name equals Portsmouth, and OK. And I'll zoom to the layer, and we should get the buffer around Portsmouth. And to be tidy, we'll also rename these. Okay. One other thing to mention is where we've got coastal cities, they are interested in showing just the land, so that you don't need to be showing all the sea. Now here in Portsmouth we do need to show the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight is relevant, so we need to include that. But for example, where we have Brighton, where there was no island, we could have just excluded the sea from our final map. So it's fine that the buffer goes over the sea, but we don't need to show it on the final map. Okay, so let's have a look at the the residential data. Right, the residential data, we don't want to use the Brighton version of this because we're actually going to create a subset of the LSOA data, not just filter it. So this is sitting in a layer or a table called residential int, and if I switch that on, you see that it's all been styled already according to the one I created before, and that's got all of the LSOA data for the country in it. So basically we just need to be able to filter out those that sit within that 20-mile buffer. So the way to do this, I would recommend, is go to Research Tools under the Vector menu and choose Select by Location. Okay, so we want to select features for or from residential int that are within, so we get rid of intersect, and we just need to find the correct layer, which is going to be the 20-mile Portsmouth layer. 20-mile Portsmouth. So we are comparing features to or from this layer. We want to create a new selection from our query, and then we can just run it. And close. So you can now see that all those LSOA areas within the 20-mile buffer have been selected. So all we need to do with this now is create a new layer based on that selection. So go to the layer menu, go to Save As, and I'm happy if you want to do this as a shapefile. We can just call this one Resi Portsmouth. Save. And the important thing you also need to do is check the box that says Save Only Selected Features. So you'll just be saving those features that you've just created the selection for. And press OK. Give it a minute. Super. So that Resi Portsmouth layer is now visible. It's just as one colour. We want to style this to be the same as the residential int. What I've already done, I've already saved my style out as a separate file. So all you need to do is go to Properties for the layer, Symbology, Style, Load Style. If you were saving the style, I'll mention this at the moment. If you were to have created a new style, you can save it just by going to Save Style. So if you altered the one I had, made your own, save the style, it saves it out as a QL. I've forgotten the file extension, but it saves it out as a file, and then to go and retrieve it, you just go load style. We go and browse to it, and say this is the one I want. Resi int. It's a QML file. Is what it is. Go open. Load style. Nice. And then go OK. We can get rid of the selection, so it no longer looks yellow, and I'm going to drop it into our Portsmouth folder. Portsmouth. Okay, and there we go. Now that's basically all we need to do to provide the data to go forth and make our layout with a template. Things to look out for: that boundary for Portsmouth wants to be very clear. At the moment I feel it doesn't look that clear. There's quite a lot of black coming off the LOSA data, so we might want to just tweak that or see how it looks on the final printout. I'd also like to label, or at least have in my key, what that red line is, to indicate that that's a 20 mile buffer from Portsmouth. So there we go. Obviously keep in touch, let me know if you've got any questions, and thank you very much.